right, bear with me. As you mentioned that I'm the ASP Assured Safe Production focal point for the refinery, and in a slide or two later, I'll explain a little bit more about the ASP process that we have at the refinery. But I'll give you a little bit more about my background. And so when we talk about, hey, I've been at the refinery for 37 years, and I hired him right out of high school. I was 18 years old. I already mentioned I could barely spell refinery. I've seen a lot of changes. So as you can see, they've been out there 37 years. I hired in at 18. I got a lot of white hair. A lot of guys at the plant, they tell me, hey, Greg plays the old guy, but he's not that old. I'll remind them I'm not that old. So I worked on the CAT unit, and I would tell you from my early days of working on the CAT unit, when I did move up the progression as an operator to work on the console, which was a board, and you might have had 50 controllers. That might be a lot for the CAT unit. 50 controllers that you would change, where now you have the DCS. Hell, in some cases, you might have a valve that came through the wall. So understand, it was very old school. Our refinery just experienced a 100-year centennial a few weeks ago. So we've come a long way. We've seen a lot of changes. Am I pointing at the right place? Come out here. I got it. There we go. All right, thank you. So here I'm going to talk about sustaining alarm management. And so alarm data, you see, insight to how well we manage our business. And it's so true. The alarm data gives us a lot of information. And but you got to say, who owns the metrics? Is it management? Is it operations? Is it process control? And operations supervision will tell you, ultimately they own the alarms. They own the process. But you can make a case for process control that they are tethered to the consoles. They work so closely with the consoles that they're a big stakeholder in the alarm management. So, but who has the most to benefit from the alarms and the instrumentation issues, improving all of that? It's the operations. So here we go. I said operations will tell you that they own them, but we all own them, and it's a partnership, right? It's a partnership between the operations supervision, console operators, process control, ref tech. We all own the alarms, the consoles, the alarm management. But along with that comes some challenges, and some of the challenges of the groups I just mentioned, that they're all having to work together. I'll say the challenge of working together, you might think, well, everyone, if you're familiar with the whirlwind, if you ever heard about the whirlwind, it's everything that you do in your job daily that has to get done, and you don't need another thing on your plate to deal with. But so that's one of the challenges we have, just getting our people focused on addressing the alarms. So ASP, what is it? So it's our operation process in which we use to avoid abnormal situations and achieve goal zero at the refinery. So doing this, we say, hey, if we follow our operation process, we will run safer, more reliable, and more profitable at the end. So everyone involved with operations has a role and responsibility, a set of expectations within ASP. As we know, operations 24/7, 365. But what ASP is a formal, I'm going to say meetings, but tasks and meetings that allow for upward communication in the organization. And so I'll break it down briefly. If you take a Wednesday morning, this morning, the operators have a set of tasks that they're expected to complete, and they come together by 6:30 with operations supervision to explain the threats and challenges for that day, the opportunities for that day, anything that was scheduled the day before and can or cannot happen. And by the supervision will take that information, and by 8:30, we like to think that the refinery can be optimized, and we should all be on one plan. But along with that, so that's happened daily, day and nightly, on both shifts, 12-hour shifts, and on weekends, of course, the similar process. However, as I have here, ASP includes a weekly alarm review meeting for each console. And so we have 10 consoles at the refinery, and what we have is 1 day a week, same time, same place. We have each console will have a group of SMEs that will come together to discuss the alarm issues. And so that includes your operations specialist, your ref tech, your console, your process control engineer, process control specialist, your console operator. So once a week, they're going to dedicate, it's designed to dedicate a specific amount of time just on discussing your console metrics and improving your consoles. But, there's a human element factor involved in that. And you might say if ASP has the solution, has the meeting, why does the refinery still struggle? Why do we have a large number of alarm and instrumentation issues in the refinery? And why the refinery is just average amongst its site amongst its peers in the corporation. So there's some work to do. And so, ASP, you might think ASP was the answer, but we still struggle. And so what are some of those struggles? Well, we talk about the team buying into the process. When I say the team, it's that all those individuals, all those groups that come together, that there's so many alarms to deal with. Where do they begin? And they all have so many tasks to do already. But some of it is operators not aware of the metrics. Many of our metrics, they could be a month old, they could be a day old. They're not as up to date as maybe as we would like. And so that creates another. And then, we have up there, it's not my job. We're a union plant. Some of it, they push back on supervision. Hey, I'll run it, you fix it, and it's gaining that ownership. So through ASP, we've taken two approaches to improve our alarm huddles, our weekly alarm huddles. And so one of them we said as a group, we said, what does the console want? What does it need? What does the console operator need? Well, let's get you involved. What do you need? And coming out of that was, look, can you reduce the alarm summary on my console? And so like I mentioned, we have 10 consoles out there. And in some cases on the DCS, each page of alarms is about 15. And in some cases, we had multiple pages. I don't want to make us sound terrible, but we weren't all that great. Most consoles had more than one page, and some maybe as many as 5. We had a lot of work to do, and it seemed overwhelming to the alarm review teams. So we asked the console operators, can you get this down? Okay, we'll take that under consideration. And then we said, buy-in and ownership from everyone involved with each console. So, hey, we have the alarm team, but we need the commitment, we need the buy-in to it. Well, ASP requires buy-in to the process, but you can't make a person have buy-in to your, you can tell them all you want, you can't make them, right? But you get them involved, and when you get them involved, it'll help the team to learn and understand overall some of your challenges. And when I talk about, you can't make them, and I'm not talking about on the team members, I'm not talking about, hey, the hourly, we couldn't get them always involved. I'm talking some of the other groups, you might say they're so overwhelmed that we had to get some of the supervision to come in to buy in. we had challenges with them having buy-in as well. So, you know, like I have here, you know, it was like an elephant to eat. And, you know, you may have heard the term, you know, how to eat an elephant, right? And it's one bite at a time. We kept moving, keep moving. All right. So, like I had mentioned, simplify the metrics. So, when we talked with the console operator, we said we're going to just start attacking one alarm at a time on that console summary. And we set a target of less than 15 alarms, and that's one page on the DCS. Less than that. And in many cases, we did get that down to 0, 1, or 2. At any given time, you could walk in the control room. But there were a couple of consoles we had more difficulty with. So we kept eating away. We kept taking another bite of that elephant and getting our alarms down. So what are some of the benefits of getting the alarm summary page down to a handful or 1 or 2 or less than 15 anyhow? And part of it is, one of the benefits is, as the operator, you could ask the operator, hey, how are you doing on your alarms today? And he'll have his summary up and he could explain, or that person could explain the 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe as many as 5 or 6 that they had. And they could explain, well, this one they're PVM and right now that's going to go away. And this one here, process control is going to, we're working with process control. And another one may need a work notification. And part of reducing, getting their summary down, their alarm summary down, additional to that, we attacked all the other metrics that the corporate was measuring us against each other, all the other sites in the company. And so we saw a gradual improvement that we were meeting or about to be meeting. We still have a lot of work to do, but our corporate metrics have improved greatly. One of the things when you reduced your alarm summary, sometimes the decision was to shelve that alarm. And shelved is exactly what it sounds like. You've taken maybe a problem here and you put it over here. So your summary is less, but you have a problem that you have to deal with eventually. And so that creates another problem that I'll get to later. Another thing is on the console, responding to emergencies or to process upsets. When you have just a handful of alarms on your summary, it's quickly to identify when they pop up on your summary, and they won't get cluttered with the pages of alarms. Another piece that I had with the weekly meetings, I began to just track two things: your console summary and the shelved. So you can only imagine that your shelved alarms, as everyone got their console summaries down, in many cases the summaries came up a little bit. Not every issue that was on the summary went straight to shelved. Don't get me there. We did resolve a lot of issues, but your shelved alarms came up. There's not a corporate metric that's measuring shelved alarms. However, we're watching. We know we have an issue with shelved alarms that we're working on. And so I started providing that weekly data to the alarm teams. And let's just give an example of, as much as recently as a year ago, we had maybe upwards of around 700 shelved alarms, and we're down in the low 300s right now. And our consoles are, I would tell you, last week when I looked, they were all within a page except for one console, and it's kind of fluctuating with some of the process issues that they have. So we've come a long way, but we still have a lot of work to do. Part of the shelved alarms, we want to get them down. We want to get those tools, those points, back into the field, into the operator toolbox. The console, he has that indication it's coming in, it's available to him. Okay. So involvement is more important than buy-in. So we talked about simplifying the metrics and how that improved our alarm metrics, but simplifying the buy-in. And And I heard this comment, involvement is more important than buy-in. And I heard this comment a couple of months ago at a conference that I was at, that one of our corporate managers mentioned this, and I started to think about ASP, and it's very similar to what we're doing in the refinery with ASP, because ASP can't make you have buy-in, and ASP gives you the reason and the explanation of the importance of it, but it can't make you have buy-in. And so through these weekly alarm meetings, what we were seeing is we addressed what the console operator want. Hey, get my summary down. Now we got a little ownership buy-in from him, from that person, and so the other team members. Okay, now we're clicking here, and we're getting the team. We're starting to build a team. We're starting to build trust in each other, and we're starting to make progress. People look forward that the consoles are challenging each other with their alarms. So it's made the human element so much better. Through my role as the ASP focal point, I audit these meetings. So these are a standard time, same bat place, same bat time every week. They're having these alarm meetings. And say prior, they were kind of hit and miss. And so now that they're having them routinely, and they're making progress each week. I audit them for their structure, make sure that they're staying focused, because they have a short amount of time to get a lot of work done. And just stay with it. I have here, keep swimming, just keep working away at our alarm issues. Well, that's, I was going to say, how we've improved. We still have work to do with our alarms, but another thing that we're working with PAS is to develop a dashboard for the refinery alarm metrics. And what that dashboard looks like, we don't have it in place yet, but Brian with PAS, a talented guy, he's working on it. And it's a 3-tier dashboard, and it's going to have an upper management at a quick glance, upper management can see how the refineries looks from an alarm perspective. You're going to have a middle management that the asset teams and the ops supervision, if they so choose, they'll have their metrics that they're interested in, and the way that he's building it, you can dive into each of the metrics if they so choose. And then there's going to be a dashboard for the operator, and this is the beauty of it is it's what the operator wants, needs to help him run his console and be sustainable, the alarm management, to make it sustainable. I look forward to it, and I think the dashboard's coming coming soon. Sustainability. All right. So, you talk about it's a culture change, and it takes time. But it does to get sustainability so that the consoles always have their alarms within their grasp. They understand it takes more than time. Time doesn't do it alone. It takes working as a team. These people come together. You have to listen. I mentioned it's a union environment. It's not the easiest environment to get buy-in, but through the involvement, we get a lot of buy-in. Relationships are built, trust. Every time these ref tech or process control or the ops specs, they go to discuss alarm issues, they're not alienated. They're interested, and so that's going to drive, strive for excellence. Those consoles own their decisions and reward results along the way. We've made a lot of headway in the last year, and we intend to be leading our company in our metrics and all our metrics. So that's all I have. If anybody has a comment or question, I'll take that. I think I'm on time. Yes.
You are on time. Mike Rock, JD Controls. What control system do you have, and how much logic and programming did you use to reduce your alarm count? And do you have a procedure on shelving?
Okay, we do have a procedure on shelving. And what was the right before that? You said what control?
What control system do you have?
I'm not sure if we have the DCS. I don't even know what version
the
of it is
Honeywell
now. TDC 3000 at one time. Is that what it was?
And then they're moving, they're migrating to the Experion system.
Exactly. The Experion is coming on. A couple of consoles have that right now. Is that everything that you asked?
Logic and programs. How much logic and programming do you use to reduce your alarm count?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that we have. Brooke, you want to help me out?
So, Greg's kind of like the end user to give the perspective of, hey, this is what it takes to maintain your alarm management system, because it's going to go up and down as time goes on. But from the to answer your question on the state-based logic, we have quite a bit. Okay, so I don't know the total count, and that's one of those things that we steward as a team. The number of state changes, because sometimes those guys can chatter, go back and forth. But on a coker, very extensive, because it's a semi-continuous process, and you're going basically starting up and shutting down that whole unit a couple of times a day. So that one has lots and lots. Oh, Mike has the answer. It's 200 for the coker. Yeah.
You know what I would add on the shelved alarms? I mentioned we have a process that we have to go through to shelve alarm, and in many cases we don't shelve some IPLs, but in some cases we do. But there's a formal process that we go through that. The shelved alarms, it's a nice place, like I mentioned, to a placeholder, but it's not the answer. And I'm kind of surprised, and I know with Rick and Mike we're going to work on having our own metric for that. That should be a metric out in the industry. And if anyone has that, it's a great indicator. You haven't resolved all your alarm issues just because your summaries are low.
Yes.
What was that?
Can PSS track shelved alarms from Experion? So Line Mobile Cell is using Plan State Suite to track their to shelve and track.
But I guess my question was, if you shelve in Experion, can PSS track that?
Right.
Yes.
I love it when our customers answer the questions. I don't want to commit to that because there are some challenges, right, when you have those Experion, the DCS systems and getting that information into PSS, right? But they answer.
Hi, Curtis Vila from Dyno Nobel. Just sharing a comment based on our experience. We had operations management at our site from previous experience focusing on a single KPI of standing alarms. That was the sole. And what our experience was, it was totally opposite of what the operators were really experiencing around nuisance alarms. So we had this polarization of shelving was a great tool, which we made it really important to have that shelf automatically clear every shift, so the operators are forced to review it. Right. So the number of shelves are really based on chattering or nuisance. And the standing alarms we lived with, and just we ate the elephant one bite at a time by. So consider that, and also make sure, talking to the operators, what are they really living with? What's their pain versus what's a KPI for management to be looking at?
You're exactly right. When we took on all this, the standing console summaries were overwhelming, and I think we're at a place that we can go back to what we were doing, exactly looking at those individual vectors there, and continue to address our alarms. It's kind of like we had to get our arms around it and wrestle it down. It took us some time. We're there again. Anyone else?
Any additional questions? Oh, hey, Hector.
Hector Perez, PAS. What kind of incentives do you put in place to help the process? And I'm not necessarily talking about bonuses and that kind of stuff, but is there, like, for example, competition between units? Let's see who gets there better, faster.
So I do publish some trends, some graphs weekly that they share at each console. I do hear the comments, that there's competition amongst themselves. Incentives outside of that, nothing at this time. But yet we've talked about, hey, this console's been knocking it out of the park since we started. Or actually, we did have an area in our plant that console was pretty much in pretty good shape when it was everybody else, And so as a group, it wasn't indicative of their work, and so that's almost with anything you do. Not every area was poor performers, but we haven't gotten into reward necessarily, but we created a competition just by publishing the metrics. But we certainly want to do something around rewards. Yes?
How you doing? This is Stephen Rivers of XMO. Are y'all doing any things with things like off delays, on delays, dead bands, PV filtering as well?
Yes. Yes. We do that also. Yes, we do on delays, off delays, depending on the criticality of the particular tag. Especially if we have a chattering one that's just hitting all the time.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because I think a lot of times the concept of, you're right here, you're right here. I think a lot of times the concepts of sites in general, you see the same
issue a lot of times with at ExxonMobil when we're looking at the challenge of trying to meet these metrics and the recommendations, I guess, because ISA doesn't really tell you have to be at these different numbers, right? The average loans gives you recommendations on what you should be at. But I think many times the challenge we see with sites is that we get to the point where we're trying to meet these numbers of 6 alarms per hour or 10 alarms in 10-minute periods, but we get to the point where, okay, when we target this specific metric, we start doing things like suppressing alarms or shelving alarms or doing different things like inhibiting alarms or journaling just to make these certain metrics look good. But at the end result is, okay, are you really doing the operator advantage or doing the people in the field advantage? Because maybe some issues with the instruments that need to be fixed, but by us shelving these alarms and doing these different things, suppressing alarms, you're not really getting to the root cause, right, which is fixing the issue in the first place. So that's why I was wondering if you're doing different things like the nuisance alarms that off delays and on delays could help trigger that a lot. So that's why I was curious. Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, all too often I think the shelve is a crutch, and we're not going to conform to that. We're going to go first.
Mr. Dwayne, one of the things I saw what you're talking about, if you got the process in place for the shelving and things so that it requires supervision, they just can't do it on their own, that'll prevent that metric compliance, which we would call malicious compliance, right? You're just trying to meet your metric. And then the other thing, I don't know, we've run across, you were talking about buying, Greg, a lot of the utilities are building new plants, smaller plants now, the combustion turbines. What we see as a good practice is they're putting their engineering workstation in the control room right next to the operator. So when those guys are in there doing alarm management, the operator is very aware of it, and they can have they can have dialogue, but it's very team building, right? Because they see those guys are concerned about their welfare. It's very proactive. So if you guys have any opportunity, consider putting that in there where the operators can see the guys. I think it's very helpful.
Any other questions? Donna?
I am Kanana Rajan, PS. We are developing a new technique in which we are trying to show the operator how the priorities are changing. Where are the priority 1s, priority 2s, priorities 3 in a sort of a graphical way along with the rationalization database. So do you think that will alleviate a lot of operator fears? Like if the operator knows how his priorities are changing during rationalization?
I think that will. Do I think it will? By having a high emergency high, do I think that will do what?
In the process of rationalization, sometimes you change priorities and decide this shouldn't be priority 2, priority 3, 1 by 2. Is that operators who really understand why those priorities are changing?
I think it's part of our process. No, I'm not seeing, I haven't seen the that, like you mentioned, bother the operators with the priority changes. We have that process to go through on the rationalization and NOCs that to change that we get the buy-in. It's not haphazard change.